Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show.
Hey, welcome aboard, and today the fleet's in. We've got an all-Navy program, and you're going to love it because we're going to teach you how to make a living. I want to introduce Cedric White, my co-host. He is an amazing, probably the best marriage counselor for veterans, active duty military. You guys do it all over the world, don't you?
We do. We travel all over. We've been invited to a lot of different places to assist. Ukraine, we've been to Cuba, we've been hard places like Hawaii and places like that.
You're killing.
Yeah,
You're killing it. Okay, he was a gunner's mate. I was aviation maintenance administration. Nikki, you were medic. And Joseph, we're going to introduce electronics tech.
ET.
So let me introduce Nikki Taylor, Texas Veterans Commission, entrepreneur, leadership, business development. You got all kinds of things that you do to help veterans get started in business. And then Joseph Loomis, you're the CEO now of TurboVets. You have had, 3 companies you started successfully, and you have so much experience in that area. And I looked you up, I was amazed. So let's start with Nikki and say, okay, Nikki, if I want to have a business, a veterans owned business, I don't want to work for the man anymore. I don't want to work for the big corporation. What's the first thing you do? Where do you start?
So if you have an idea or a passion for something, you can make that a reality. We encourage our veterans to visit our website. That's kind of where you start and initiate the process with the Veteran Entrepreneur Program with the Texas Veterans Commission. So once you complete that inquiry, that online inquiry with us, we're able to help you begin the process as far as applying for that veteran verification letter. That letter is very popular to our department. I say that because it waives that $300 filing fee when you're starting that business, which is a big deal, especially if you're just getting started. And it also waives the first 5 years of franchise tax, which is a really big deal if you ask me. So we're really popular in a sense of that veteran verification letter, that veteran-owned business logo that's going to help market your business as being veteran-owned. So yes, you start from an idea, but then you work with one of us, one of your veteran business consultants within the Texas Veterans Commission, and we kind of help you just get that business plan written down, help you come up with that market research, connect you to your local small business development centers, and really dive in on making that a reality.
Without a doubt, I used to one time I managed a bunch of retail shopping centers in Texas and Oklahoma. And the percentage of startup owned businesses that failed was 90%. And most of them didn't have a plan, didn't know how to market. They just had, I got a great idea. And it was, I got to the point I'd taken over shopping centers that were in bankruptcy or foreclosure. And I'm like, sit down with them and help them develop a plan. And most people don't do that. Now, Joseph, you started yours. You went basically, and tell us about your experience in your first company, how you organized that and what happened.
The first real big company was a company called Net Enforcers that I was working for a company and they had a problem with internet counterfeits and gray market. And if anyone knows what gray market is, it's when you basically sell products outside of distribution. So for example, like buying, vehicle or car products and stuff like that off the back of the truck or through distribution centers you're not really an authorized dealer. So I started that company and I really didn't, this was kind of really internet entrepreneur world where you had a lot of resources. And so I really just kind of did it by what of avenues of just like paying attention to what other people were doing and asking questions. It was a little bit of dumb luck of just kind of figuring it out as I went. And I started that company with $300 and grew it to doing over $1 million of profitability in about 3.5 years. I would say that, what separated us was probably the resilience and kind of brute force. I think personality plays a lot into what created that business was my determination. And I think when, never taking no for an answer, it wasn't without difficulty, but it was a lot of asking a lot of questions to people that had more experience than me. And it was kind of the old adage of saying, if someone has something that you want, do what they did. And that was kind of the attitude that I took in the early days of, this was probably 2003.
That had to be fun. Now, within that, where did you start it? You weren't here in Texas, were you, or were you?
No, I was in Phoenix, Arizona. Actually, I started in the first incorporation of that business was actually Long Beach, California. It was out of a P.O. box, of all things. It was kind of small as you get type of company. And then I'd moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and started it up there. Kind of took it from a sole proprietor to a corporation. Then started hiring employees and stuff like that in Phoenix. And then over the course of that, opened up a development office in Florida, and basically where I went to school, University of Florida. So I knew there was good engineering talent there. And then I wound up selling it while I was headquartered out of Phoenix in late 2007.
So this was really a tech company? Is that true?
Yeah, it was a tech company that found all the bad stuff on the internet. And then I worked with big pharmaceutical, the federal government, FBI, DEA on stopping online crime. It was anything from money laundering to counterfeit products, counterfeit medications, counterfeit automotive products there was a real health risk with these counterfeits, whether it was the medication side of it or even faulty like counterfeit brakes that were being made into the market, and then they were failing while they were on the road. So it was a real risk, a real issue. And so we built a lot of early first technology that was find all of this stuff on the internet, kind of like pre-Google, find all the bad stuff in all the different places that they sold things. And back in those days, there was a lot of auction sites, more than just eBay or what you have today or Facebook Marketplace. There was probably 10 or 20 different auction sites that we had to scan, and we had to find all of these products and then shut them down.
Wow. So it was really based upon your passion that you learned in the Navy about tech stuff. You learned it in the Navy how to do it, correct?
Yeah, the Navy was my entryway into computers. I grew up on a small farm in Florida. My dad had like a Tandy 1000 with MS-DOS, and it wasn't really that techie. It was more of a farm kid. And the Navy kind of opened my eyes and my abilities becoming an electronics technician. And I think it was the first opportunity that I was able to really get in the technical field, and it really worked out to my benefit of learning how to do all of those things and learning how to, computers work, building computers, programming, et cetera. And I was able to leverage that in order to build in the first company.
So Joseph, Nikki, I want to ask both of you guys this question, because the answers would come from two different perspectives. Joseph, you're sharing, right, how the Navy, as an ET, taught you all the technical stuff, but transferring that into a business, a viable business, is a whole different aspect, right? So, yeah. Nikki, from your perspective, Joseph, from your perspective, what are the hardest things that you see that people run into when they say, "Hey, I've got this skill, or I've got this great idea," but what are the difficulties that you see starting out in the entrepreneurship? Because Joseph, you say I noticed this, you're a serial entrepreneur. Yeah. We'll talk about that later. But can you answer that for me?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I talk about this because I've made some investments in other startups, and the viability of success versus not success. I've always pondered that question of why do the 10% make it and the 90% don't? Mm-hmm. If you had put 100 entrepreneurs in a room and you asked them all who's going to succeed, who's going to fail, they're all going to raise their hand that they're going to succeed. So then they start digging into why do some entrepreneurs succeed and why some don't. There's a couple factors, I say. Founder drama is number one. Most people start a business with their friends, which doesn't always equate to good operating partners. Right. So that is where kind of social circles, sometimes people, and I've made this mistake, by the way, I've lost a few founders in my day, they equate personal relationships as the same as business relationships. Yep. And that is kind of a fool's errand. Right. Very rarely does it work. The second is lack of validation. A lot of people have good ideas, but they have to go out to the market and make sure that there's customers that want or benefit from that idea. Right. You know, kind of, it's called the product market fit. You really have to be, and we'll talk about this when I get into TurboVets, you have to be really cynical about your own business in order for you to be safe and successful with your business. You have to always manage risk, and you always have to think about, what am I not looking at? And that's typically what a business plan is, right? It's not really a plan that you're going to follow per se, step by step, but it gets you thinking about what you're not thinking about. You know, financing, hiring the right team. Where do you start the business? What does your logo and your name look like? Does someone already have the trademark? That is why it's paramount that you put a really good business plan together. And then you ask as many people as you can that are savvy in business to shoot holes in it. Okay. Tell me what's wrong. What am I missing? What do I need to improve on? And that humility of looking for constructive criticism raises your probability of success.
I like that.
And Nikki, you do that as business consultant with TVC, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I would just to add to that too. I think maybe veterans are kind of intimidated about the process as far as starting a business. They might think, okay, it's too far fetched, or maybe it's like starting the impossible. But the thing is, it's not. We have a lot of resources within our program to connect veterans to different mentorship, or connect them to learning the right market research, or to look for the right market research, to putting that pen to the paper and starting their business plan. And not, you want to be optimistic, but you also want to be a realist about things, right? You don't want to, like, for instance, you need funding resources. We share that information with our veterans. Hey, here's where you can locate small business loans or people funding, different resources in that realm, in that area. But we want them to get their idea down and realize that it's going to take some work. It doesn't happen overnight. That's why we say we have to be honest about things. It's not a rushed process. You want to take your time and really get to those resources and make it make sense, in other words.
So wait, Nikki, what you're saying is you guys don't just fund my business idea? What? No?
No, I wish. We'd be even more busier.
Right.
Boy, that's for sure.
And TVC helps me as well. I mean, I interface with their entrepreneurial program. They've given me a lot of good insight. TVC has introduced me to the University of Texas Arlington's entrepreneurial program, was one of their mentors that they recommend. I work with a gentleman named Patrick Alcorn. He's very, very savvy in the Texas area. He's helped me connect with the VA, the Veteran Administration's entrepreneurial program, through the Vocational and Readiness program that a lot of entrepreneurs and disabled veterans don't know about. It's called VRE. Self-employment track, and I'm working with them as well. So there's a lot of resources out there to help, including funding.
Yeah.
The VA has a self-employment program for entrepreneurs that will give you your startup capital if you are able to build a viable business plan working with the mentors.
Patrick Alcorn's a good friend of mine. And when he started, he is a rock star, and he started that thing, I don't remember exactly when. And he has every year, he's got workshops, but he has a deal with franchise companies, and a whole bunch of companies come, and you can come and meet all of these, like 7-Eleven. That's where I met Edward James from 7-Eleven and these other people. And you go, oh, wait a minute. Here is a pre-done deal. And this is what it takes to get into it. Right. One of the things, though, that I saw, and you guys, you said something, Joseph, about marketing. You mentioned guerrilla marketing, which I wanted to laugh. Of all of the shopping centers, all of the startup companies that I ended up helping or managing, the biggest problem they had was they didn't know how to market. They didn't know. They just thought, well, if I build it, I put up a sign out there, I wave a few banners, people will come see me. That's what you're here for, shopping center. And I go, not really. You know, we're bricks and we're the bricks and mortar, and I can only do so much. So I started doing promotion programs to help these companies get off the ground. You know, Battle of the Bands or this, that, and whatever. But they had so little sophistication in marketing. Joseph, it sounds like you've put together the turbocharge for that to get that going.
Yeah, you really have to be resourceful. And if you're not resourceful, you just got to ask a lot of questions, as it's you never give up, have that, you kind of find that military grit that I think a lot of us have of just, going and find if you don't know the answer, go find it, right? Ask around, ask ChatGPT. You'd be amazed how much ChatGPT can teach you about starting a business, guerrilla marketing, free, marketing resources, working with your local support centers, veterans groups. There's even veteran entrepreneurial meetups now where other veterans are supporting other veterans' businesses. And so you really can kind of get good mentorship, advisors, support, et cetera, that, I think a lot of people don't take advantage of, which I would love to see more of.
You said GBT. Define that.
ChatGPT is the AI program that OpenAI uses, and it's basically a prompt where you ask it questions. It's found at openai.com or .org. And you basically you can ask it any question. You could say, I'm wanting to start a business in this sector. How would I best find early investors for that? Or it's a really I use it every day, all day. I use it to write my emails and help me with drafting really articulate emails, making me sound smarter than I am. It helps take out a lot of the emotion out of emails whenever you're kind of frustrated. It can really professionalizes your approach as well as your resources to ask lots of questions. I mean, you could have it build a marketing plan for you. You could have, I even uploaded our business plan to it and asked it to write me a smaller version of it
for
investors to read, because our business plan was 140 pages.
Oh Lord, let me come back because we got to go to a break real quick. So this is Veterans Impact Show. We'll be right back showing you how to start your own business.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Oh man, I got to tell you, I'm learning so much, and I've had so much experience. And I got to tell you, nothing is more tragic than seeing somebody take their life savings, buy a franchise, rent a space in a shopping center, and a year from now, they've lost weight, they've lost their hair, they're tearing their, they're going, yeah, well, you're a minister, Cedric. I've seen it. And here are people that are telling you how to be successful at it, what to do. And I'm glad you defined the ChatGPT. I'd heard of it before, but maybe a lot of people haven't. And so that's one of the things that's a tool. In doing this, you talked about Patrick Alcorn and what he does with the University of Texas at Arlington. There are other entrepreneurial programs around the nation. We're not the only ones. I think Texas is maybe the best. And without a doubt, what would you say, though? I said marketing's the biggest problem. What would you guys say is the biggest problem that causes startups to go down? Joseph, you were talking about something with that.
Yeah, I think team is the most difficult thing to assemble in a startup, because a lot of mistakes entrepreneurs make are they invite the people around them that are in their social circles, and they expect that to translate to highly productive work environments. And that causes a lot of difficulty and strain. And I think more venturing to meetups and where entrepreneurs meet other entrepreneurs and other people that are like-minded, so they can learn and find. It's almost like finding a second version of friends, where you have your personal friends and you have your business friends. And I think entrepreneurs need to focus more on finding more business friends that equate to similarities that they have or desires that they have to build something. I think team is the biggest factor. I heard a one smart saying that said, a good team can fix a bad product, but a bad team can't do anything.
Actually, a bad team can actually ruin a good
all about
product.
Team.
Yeah.
A team can overcome anything, as you know, with our Navy SEALs and Green Berets. I mean, I got to have a Navy plug there. They have demonstrated that small team environments are highly productive in almost anything that, whatever the problem they get thrown, they can solve it because of the dynamics of their team unity and the way that they leverage each other's strengths.
So you would hire a SEAL Team 6 in a heartbeat to start another company.
I have a few SEAL team members on TurboVets' management team and a Medal of Honor recipient from the Army. Absolutely. They are some of the best when it comes to integrity, knowing what they're good at and what they're bad at, and leveraging their assets and delegating the weak points. That is the number one factor in building a team. It's like building a franchise team, right?
Yeah.
It takes time to build a team. You cannot throw money at building a franchise team. It takes 5 or 10 years to build a franchise team in any sport. Think about that. It takes time to find the right resources. So don't be impatient in building your business. Sometimes it's better to have restraint than it is to have that, I'm just going to go for it and just see how it goes. It's better to be a little bit more calculated in the early days when it comes to your team building.
And TVC, do you offer some sort of clearinghouse that, let's say I want to go to work, that I've got years and years of experience in the cyber area with the Air Force or with the Navy, and I'm really good at this. It sounds like Joe is exactly the kind of guy I want to. Do you have some sort of clearinghouse that you can help people come together with TVC, Nikki?
So are you asking like as far as like working with other entrepreneurs as far as hiring veterans to be a part of their team?
Well, or veterans who want a job and be a part of a team.
Oh, absolutely. So we actually, the Texas Veterans Commission, we have an employment department. So what we would do is connect any veteran interested in that realm with our employment department directly.
Wow. Go ahead, Sid.
I was just going to ask, so from the entrepreneurial perspective, are there assessments, are there tests, are there things that maybe might assist me? Here I am, I'm Cedric White, and I've got a great idea. I want to bring to the market aluminum squirrel catching toothbrushes, right? And so is there anything that you guys would say, that's maybe not such a great idea, but we can help you in some other areas, just to sort of help
absolutely.
Me with my plan?
So yeah, and just in talking with our veteran population, like that, having that one-on-one consulting, we're able to kind of sit down with them and kind of go over their ideas and encourage them to either wheel it in or wheel it out. We're pretty honest with them as far as what we know and what we're familiar with. And then if we don't know, we're honest too. We'll connect them to those resources that are local to them.
I was going to ask you, do you ever say no?
No.
Okay.
That's not in our vocabulary. Although I just said it. But I do want to add one thing that Joseph mentioned about forming a team. I would say something that we notice is that some veterans, like Joseph mentioned, maybe that they're just so eager to get started that they want to partner with a family member or a friend, and they kind of rush into things. We see that happen more often than not. And then maybe later down the road, they kind of have regrets as far as forming that business and have to go back and make amendments and attempt to make an amendment to make that correction off of their certificate of formation. So we just encourage our veterans, like with our veteran verification letter, one eligibility criteria is that it's 100% veteran owned. And then for the veteran owned business logo, The criteria is the eligibility criteria is that it's 51% veteran owned. So we have those stipulations in place just to kind of encourage them to take their time, making sure this is something that they really want to get into and they won't have regrets later down the road. So forming a team is very important. And I like how Joseph mentioned just maybe with like-minded entrepreneurs versus just kind of rushing into things.
Call me, I'll help. I love helping other entrepreneurs. It's kind of a weird thing that you have to give it away in order to keep it. And that's what I tell every entrepreneur when it comes to helping another. The only way you get to keep the magic of building entrepreneurship is to pass it along to another.
Well, let's do this. When we come back, let's give out you guys contact information so people can get a hold of you. Where can you go? And we've actually got the TVC website. We can come up. I want to talk more about these things. So we're going to come back right after the break. This is Jim Blythe and Cedric White. We are so thankful that you're on board with us. Share this, get it out there. Guerrilla marketing, help us get this out. Hey, we'll be right back.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Hey, we're going to continue the conversation, but real quick, I need to say a special thank you to DBTV. You can go look it up, dbtv.tv. They carry us on Amazon Fire, Roku, Smart TV, Apple TV, etc. Also, AUN California, Northern California. What a great network. Look it up. We're on there with them. They put us out in several places as well. Also, Fairway Independent Mortgage, my mortgage company. My MLS number is 311-548. The corporate one is 2289. And we are an equal opportunity lender. How about Cedric, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry? You're also part of this team, as well as Symbios Integrative Health. We just want to say we're here to help you with the hope, the help, and the healing.
That's it.
And it's important for a lot of people to understand starting your own business takes a whole lot. It's an exciting opportunity. You don't want to be part of the 90% that failed. So one of the questions that I was going to ask you guys, one of the other biggest problems that I ran into as a manager of big shopping centers was, wow, they're undercapitalized. They had a poor business plan and they were undercapitalized. There was no shelter in case there was a storm. Joseph, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot to be said about how entrepreneurs help each other and where it comes from. It's an overwhelming experience for the first timer, and even for me as a fourth timer, and getting the right kind of support and help that you can get from, whether it's family members and, using AI, using Texas Veterans Commission, calling up Patrick, hitting me up on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to kind of help and direct and even look at a business plan here and there. So, I think that idea has to be kind of matured in having a little restraint. I think the better planned and more resourceful you are, the more likely you are to reach the 10% of probability.
Now, one of the things I read about you is you ran into some lawsuits and legal problems out of the blue that you really didn't expect.
First time for me as well. I sold my company right before the Great Recession in 2007. 2008, the company that bought me was going to be going out of business. They are out of business today. And they didn't want to, they were basically a publicly traded company that were going under. And because of that, they didn't want to have to fill their obligations of paying my earnout and all the different obligations. And I learned a lot. I really trusted the CEO, and I really thought that his word was his bond. And I was very naive as an entrepreneur, not having very good documentation with the lawyers and not really understanding the process. And it wound up, while the matter wound up settling in my favor, it didn't come without a lot of, scars. It took 3 years for it to be settled. It took a lot of money. It took a lot of like anguish and like, betrayal and like even reputational damage, people in this world today, that your reputation, they say, can take a lifetime to build and in a day to destroy. And I really appreciated that after building that business and selling it and getting into a conflict. It made my next business, CyberSponse, more difficult when it came to raising capital. Even if it's, the old adage of it's the accusation, it's not the conviction. And that is the sad part, because look at it from the investor's perspective. If they've got two people that have the same business model, one has an accusation and one doesn't, and they're all equal in all hands, there's going to be a mark against you, even if you didn't do anything wrong. And so it's a real like reality of sometimes I had to step down as the CEO of my last company for about 2 years, just so that I could focus on tech, and the company we put a Secret Service business leader in as the CEO. I put him in, I was the majority owner, because sometimes you have to step out of your own way in order to kind of build your reputation back. Even though I really, was found no wrongdoing, but it was a really wide awakening for me to understand that when you're dealing with lots of money and dollars, it's a very serious matter. You have to, you take your finances very seriously, making sure you have good tax returns, make sure that you have good legal documents. And that starts on day one. If you ever are building a business to sell it, you have to make sure that your foundation and your governance, which is, how you manage your business's legalities, it has to be first class. I mean, even to this day, I only build a business on getting my financials audited, because I never want there to be ever a question of any kind of wrongdoing or inappropriateness. I want to make sure that there's good controls in place. So I highly recommend every entrepreneur to watch a couple documentaries out there of all the different startups and how they were, built, and all the conflicts that they went through in order to build those empires.
Joe, I can tell a quick story without going into a lot of detail. I have been involved in lawsuits several times. Going way back to my experience in the Navy, everything was based on documentation. If one of my fighters or one of my helicopters went down, I was in charge of the logs and records and the coordination of maintenance. So they would grab my logbooks if that plane went down, and I could be faced with a court-martial if the logbooks weren't right. So that was the lesson I learned in the Navy. And then I went through I documented everything. When I had discussions with tenants, I would write a letter to them or write an email and documented everything. Let me tell you something. Is nothing more satisfying than to be across from some irate attorney who's trying to make a show for himself, and he's screaming at you, I'm going to do this to you, and I'm going to do that to you, and I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to break you. They say, oh, really? By the way, here's the document that I gave to your person. Yeah. Here's what we said. Here's what we did. And if you don't document things, and if you're slovenly in the way that you conduct your business, you're opening yourself up, because we are an incredibly litigious society.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things too, is be a good steward of what you do, because if you don't, the losses can be far greater than you can ever imagine. Isn't that right, Cedric?
Most definitely. You want to keep good books, right? Keep good books, put everything in writing. We're a firm believer that if it's in writing, we're both covered, right? And there has to be contracts, right? From a ministerial perspective, we talk about covenant, but when we write it down, then there's no room for assumptions. There's no room for disagreements. Hey, it's in black and white.
And you're right too about reputation, because I was in commercial real estate for many years. And Joe, I got to tell you, one guy, I knew him real well. He came to me and he said, Jimmy, you're running this deal, and why don't you bring me a deal? And I said, Uncle, in his name, because I knew him real well. I said, I know you. I know how you do business. I don't have an attorney mean enough, bad enough, or that carries a gun that I could deal with you. And he laughed and he said, yeah, that's my reputation. I said, that's why I don't do business with you. I love you. We'll go have dinner, have a drink. But man, I'm not going down that path because I don't trust you. And I was very, very upfront with him. And I think that that's something you made a point. You got to know who you're dealing with. That's not only on your team, but these other people that you buy and sell from. That is a level of experience that only comes in the bloody bath of the business world.
So, Nikki, let me ask you a question in reference to you being a Navy vet. And you leaving the Navy and having been a corpsman focusing in the dentistry area, but deciding to come on and work with the TVC. What made that decision for you and the area that you're working in? Because it's definitely a needed area. It's an area where vets need assistance. What made you go down that path?
Well, I was blessed enough to have the opportunity to start with the Texas Veterans Commission in the Healthcare Advocacy Department. That opportunity, I feel like it was just meant to be. I was still in healthcare, so I had that kind of connection already. Mm-hmm. And it was out of the Dallas VA. So that's where I started. I worked in that department for over 6 years. And then business, I always reflect on being that little girl with this little business idea, trying to get my dad to help fund my little idea and my little workout idea. I'm thinking, okay, now I can actually make that a reality, to now being in this position where I'm at, to learn more about business and to be able to pass that forward. That not only are veterans, trying to feed their families with their businesses, they're trying to create generational wealth for their families. They're trying to, establish themselves in the community, being veteran owned, and to have the opportunity to be a part of their journey, their entrepreneur journey. That alone just sealed the deal for me and where I'm at today.
Joseph, let's go back though a little bit, and you've mentioned TurboVet several times. Please, as much as you want to, because you're going to launch it. So I know you've got to be somewhat guarded, but tell us about what you're doing, because I was amazed when I read about it. And I was like, this is something that's very, very, very badly needed. Can you please discuss that with us and tell us about TurboVets and why I would want to be a part of that, or why I would want to use that?
So it started because the traditional entrepreneur went through a problem, figured out he might be able to solve it. I went through my VA benefits through my Gulf War service, and I realized how difficult it was to find and unnavigate the VA benefits process, whether it was healthcare, whether it was education, whether it was disability. And I thought to myself, I was kind of amazed at how complicated it was and how difficult, but I was also very obsessive about it too, of wanting to really learn and get a PhD in VA, right? I really wanted to learn everything about it because I was like, I couldn't believe. And I also wanted to volunteer and help other veterans with their benefits. It was kind of a passion of mine. And so in building that knowledge, I said, well, I like to help veterans. If I could help one at a time, that's amazing. But if I could help them at scale, can I help millions of them? And can I assemble a team? So I called up my former team from my Sold Cybersponse, where we automated a lot of big data stuff with cybersecurity. And part of that entrepreneurial discipline that we spoke about was, if I couldn't get my former team to join me on this venture, I would have not built it. It would have been too big of a uptick. And we were able to, my team said they were on board. They thought it was an extraordinary opportunity. We were able to raise some good capital with investors that had seen my track record and known me. And what we're building is, and you can go to turbovets.com. It's very kind of elusive, but I'll tell you specifically what we're doing is we're rebuilding the ability for veterans to manage their benefits in a single platform for the rest of their life, and it's free. What that means is all your military records, the ability to apply for your benefits is going to be similar to TurboTax. Extremely easy to do, very self-guided, so you don't have to feel alone. You don't have to feel like if you need to get a VSO, a veteran service officer, or someone at the TVC to help you, they can log in with you. Your doctors can log into is with you. So it's a unified platform that veterans will be able to manage and apply for their benefits, including a VA loan. We're going to be automating the VA loan for the first time ever to give veterans the lowest priced VA loan in America. Through working with, a couple mortgage companies that want to automate it and lessen the cost and all of the closing costs. So we're just trying to kind of standardize it. We're trying to build a large platform that has your education, your home loan, your disability, your health care, your spousal benefits, all in the same location. And you use that same location for the remainder of your life. So you go into one location.
Wow.
Joseph, let me ask you, have you stood up TurboVets now, or is it in the making?
So we're building it. We launch it on Veterans Day, November 11th. There's
Wow.
a time ticker on our website. We'll probably have a pretty large launch party at the Medal of Honor Museum in Arlington, Texas. We're a Texas born and bred company. We've got some extraordinarily Navy SEAL, Marcus Luttrell is involved. We've got Tim Kennedy, Chad Robichaud, Will Swenson, the Army Medal of Honor recipient, Britt Slabinski, Navy SEAL Medal of Honor recipient. And what it was is I wanted to get the biggest and baddest peoples out there to help us with our advertising and our marketing, because we all realized that this problem needed to be solved. There's between 20 and 42 veteran suicides per day. Yeah. A lot of that has to do with difficulty to get to benefits. A lot of veterans don't ask for help, so we like to make it really easy for them to get their benefits through a simple click and a button here.
This sounds, Jim, like almost unbelievable. The reason
Well, I know that there are VA accredited reps that are just amazing, but I don't want to disparage the VA because I send people there all the time. But dealing with that system has been a nightmare.
Yes,
has been a real problem. And of course, one of the things that people say to you is, "Well, son, you were in the military. You know how government paperwork is, don't you?" And I'm like, doesn't have to be this way.
We're like SpaceX with NASA, right? SpaceX showed up with the rocket. NASA decided to let them handle all the rocket building and launching. And that's the same relationship that we are working with the government when it comes to recruitment into the military, active duty service membership, transition assistance, as well as veteran benefits. So we're going big. This is going to be a biggie. I think this will be a multi-billion-dollar company. We should break profitability by the end of the year because we're already got some things cooking on the back. I can't say too much, but I say that it's been well received. I think the administration is very excited about leveraging technologists to handle technology. The VA and the former administration spent $3 billion building VA.gov.
Hey, listen,
I could have probably done it for $20 million with a lot left over.
Well, so let's come back in a minute and talk about this because it will save the government money, but most of all, it will save lives and it will save frustration, especially for our older vets. So we're going to come back right after these words. And I got to tell you, this is a great program. We're going to give out you guys' website, contact information when we get back. This is Veterans Impact Show. I'm sorry, my allergies are killing my throat, but this is an important show for anybody who wants to own their own business. This is an important show for every veteran to hear what Joseph has to say about getting your benefits. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, listen, I'm Cedric White, co-host of the Veterans Impact Show here with Big Jim Blythe, and
Wait a minute, I'm not as big as you.
But you're big in character, Jim.
I am a character, yeah.
We are here with two very special guests from the Texas Veterans Commission. We have Nikki Taylor, and from a guy that has just impressed the heck out of me with what he's bringing to the surface, Joseph Loomis. And the CEO of Turbo Vets. Now, I'm thinking, when I first saw the name, I'm thinking, okay, wow, this is going to be, engines or something. But what you're putting into Turbo, what you're putting some power behind, are services that have been a source of frustration for veterans, for those who have had to deal with it for years. And you're bringing to what I'll compare to a one-stop shop into the ability for people to get resources, get information, something that's been, to me, I haven't heard of anything like this. I know of some companies that do it, but nothing like this, Joseph. Nothing like this.
Yeah, it's kind of fate found me on this. I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. I never thought that I'd build another company because I felt like I was just going to kind of give it back and invest and help other entrepreneurs get there themselves. And if I hadn't built my last company, CyberSponse, which was big data automation, sometimes there's some weird things going on in this world, because that opportunity and exit and innovation in the team I built over 10 years with that company set me up for perfect success to help this hundreds, millions of lives. And I'm like, that can't be just coincidence. That no coincidence. Partly created automation for software to automate each other. And then the government seems to have a big need in automating very antiquated government application processes. I'm like, so I had a hard time with that in the business plan. Like, why hasn't someone done this? And somebody said, well, how many guys do you know, or gals do you know, that invented software automation, have built a few companies, went through the benefits themselves, and brings the whole team to the table to do it? And I'm like, that's a good point. I mean, I'm probably one of a million. And unfortunately, I just felt an obligation. It was an enlistment to do. I couldn't turn my back on my fellow veterans in this nation, because, veterans touch about 100 million people in this country. There's 20 million veterans. And if you add spouse and children to that, you're talking almost a third of the country have interfaced with some type of veteran family ship. And that, I just felt like it was just too big to turn away from. And I said, we're going to go big on this, and we're going to do it right. And we're going to do it as a partnership with the VA. It's not us against them. We've had meetings with the VA. They're very excited and very supportive, and when we launch, the proof's in the pudding. So we're really excited about this mission.
It should be. I've had work in broadcasting with the VA since we started. I knew Jeff Milligan. You probably knew him, Nikki, way back when he was director of North Texas. And then Stephen Holt and I are real good friends, as well as the current director. Here's the thing, too, about North Texas, which blew me away. Do you guys realize the North Texas VA medical system is now the largest in the system? And the VA is the largest medical system in the world. Not even talking about the benefit side of it, which is a different side. So,
127 hospitals.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't even think there's anybody that comes even like half close.
No, nobody. And so you're talking about bringing a level of sophistication, which is very difficult to do with the government. There was an Army Futures Command that was started down in Austin to be able to do kind of what you're talking about in procurement. And they got nowhere because nobody could agree. You've gotten everybody to agree, and you're focused right there on taking care of us, the veterans, and having a total one-stop shop deal. Man, I'd like to be able to help you get the word out, because this will help a whole lot of veterans. And
it's free.
And it's free. Now, who is going to pay for it?
Partner with employers to hire veterans. Everything's for free. There's no gimmicks. We don't sell veteran data. There was a rumor going around DC about us selling veteran data. We're not a Facebook. We're not getting wonky ads that we're not going to listen to your conversation and populate ads on your console. And I think, when you get to see some of our designs of our product, we're working with some of the people in Hollywood that did Tron and some of other movies. And you're going to see some pretty sophisticated military visuals, but also for the county and the accredited agents, what you were saying, Jim, the agents log in and they can manage more veterans more easily, securely. They don't have to worry about emailing medical documents. They don't have to email D214s. They don't have to worry about trying to get signatures. We're doing this to save the counties and the states so much time and frustration, so they can help more veterans that are, the more senior veterans that do make up the majority of the veteran community, believe it or not.
Do I see a halo growing around your head?
It's just a mission. It's just all about, we all enlisted for a reason. And this enlistment I got drafted, honestly. It was a calling, and I just said, I've got to do this. And I happened to ask around for a few support from here and there. And I haven't had this kind of tidal wave. I haven't seen a company get this kind of tidal wave support that we're getting, because it just makes sense.
It does make sense.
This business is creating itself. Don't make me think I'm this brilliant architect. In some ways, there was some divine intervention here, because too many weird, coincidental magic moments have happened that are very difficult to explain, as me seeing so many successes and so many failures. I am holding on as it grows itself.
Yeah.
Well, you're speaking to the choir, because I'm a chaplain and he's a minister and he's my minister. So divine inspiration, intervention, etc. Guys, we say a prayer when we close our program out. And so I'd like to say a special prayer, because this is an answer to prayer for so many veterans. So Lord God Almighty, we are so thankful for men and women who work so hard with the Texas Veterans Commission and entrepreneurs. And we're thankful to have met Joseph and the opportunity to, in any way, shape, and form, help him to help veterans. Thank you, dear God, for that. Thank you, dear God, for your hedge of protection around our active duty military, our first responders, those who run into the fire instead of away from it. Thank you, God, for your many blessings and anointments and your inspiration. Thank you so much. This we pray absolutely in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Guys, have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Share this program. And Joe, hang on just a second, because I want to ask you a question. All right.